how much is the UK state pension actually worth? Now, if I asked you that, you'd probably say something like a couple £100 a week or about £12,000 a year. But what I mean is, how much is it actually worth in your retirement plan? And when you run the numbers, this can be hundreds of thousands of pounds over the course of your retirement. So in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how much a state pension's worth, running the numbers for if you retire with a full state pension versus if you retire without a state pension at all. I'll first be doing this for individuals and then be moving on to couples to show you how whether being in a couple or individual can actually affect how much a state pension's worth. After that, I'll talk about how the state pension actually works, how you can qualify for the full state pension, and also if you are missing part of the state pension, what you can do to ensure you actually qualify for the full state pension when it comes to retirement. And towards the end of the video, I'll also tackle a common fear that a lot of people have about the state pension, and that is, what happens if the government withdraw the state pension when I get to retirement? But if you're new here, my name's Ben, I'm a financial planner, and my aim is to help people gain more clarity and confidence around their personal finances and their retirement planning. Okay, so let's actually start by talking about what the state pension is. Now, simply put, the state pension is a government-backed pension which comes into payment for people as it stands today at age 67. And the full state pension is about £12,500 a year, and this is inflation linked. So what this means is that for each year that pension is in payment for you, it's going to increase in line with the triple lock. And that's basically the higher of 2.5% inflation or average earnings. So effectively what this means is that when you reach age 67, you've got an inflation linked income for the rest of your life. Now, to qualify for the full state pension, you need 35 years of national insurance contributions. So typically, if you've worked from, let's say, 18 or 21, by the time you reach age 67, the chances are you would have qualified. Now, clearly, if you've been out of work for a period of time or been abroad, then there may be gaps in your national insurance. And towards the end of the video, I'll talk about exactly how you can fill those gaps if they're there. Okay, so let's first look at an individual. So in this example, we've got someone retiring at the age of 60 and wanting to spend about £30,000 a year. So that's about £2,500 a month after tax. And I've also reduced their expenses from age 75 because typically as financial planners, we see that as people get older into the latter years of retirement, they're not likely to be spending as much. And therefore I've reduced the expenses by about 25% from age 75. And on screen now, you can see exactly where the shortfalls are in their retirement plan. So in this example, I've assumed they're going to retire at age 60 and live to age 90. So about a 30-year retirement horizon. Now, you can see that from age 67, of that £30,000, £12,500 will come from their state pension. So when this starts, they need to find about £17,500 from their other assets and pensions to support their retirement lifestyle. And you can see that from age 60 to 67, clearly there's no state pension in payment. So for that period, there is a £30,000 a year shortfall, which means they need to find this amount of money from their other assets, pensions or investments. So based on historic market data, to sustainably spend £2,500 a month in retirement with the full state pension, you would need a pension pot of about £400,000. Okay, so now let's look at an example where there's no state pension. So again, you can see on screen now a very similar graph to what I had before, but clearly there is now no state pension. So what this means is that for the entirety of that 30 years, you are fully dependent on your other savings, pensions and investments. So based on this, how much would you need to sustainably spend £30,000 a year or £2,500 a month in retirement? And you can see on screen now that this is £550,000. So that's £150,000 more than if you had the full state pension. So simply put, if you were to retire at age 60 and wanting to spend £2,500 a month in retirement, with the full state pension, you would need a pension pot size of about £400,000. And without the state pension, the pension pot size will need to be about £550,000. So you can see there's a £150,000 difference. Now, that is not insignificant by any means. So this really does show that having the full state pension can make a huge difference to your overall retirement and how much money you actually need to have saved for retirement. Okay, now let's move on to a couple. So in this scenario, I've assumed a slightly higher level of expending of about £40,000 a year net of tax. So that's about £3,300 a month. And again, I've assumed they're going to reduce their expenses by about 25%. So that means that their annual spending will go from about £40,000 to about £30,000 at this point. And again, state pensions coming in from age 67 for both of them. So what does this actually mean in terms of the pension pot size they need? So again, you can see on screen how their retirement looks. So again, we've got a 30-year time horizon, 7 years before the state pensions come in, and you can actually see that once the state pensions come in and their expenses reduce at age 75, most of their expense is actually funded from their state pensions. So from this point onwards, there's only about a £5,000 shortfall that they need to find from their other pensions. So again, based on historical market data, to sustainably spend that £40,000 a year in retirement, they're going to need a combined pension pot of about £500,000. Now, as I've said in previous videos, the makeup of this doesn't make too much difference. Now, clearly there are tax implications of if you've got more in one pension than the other. But simply put, if you've got £500,000 between you, that should be sufficient. Okay, so now let's move on to if there is no state pension. So what I've done here is effectively assume that neither of you have got any state pension at all. So again, you can see that this means that there is a shortfall of 100% in every single year. So effectively what that means is that from age 60 to age 90, you are fully reliant on your other pensions, savings and investments to fund your lifestyle. So what does this mean for the pension pot size you would need if you were retiring as a couple with no state pension and were trying to spend about £3,300 a month? So you can see on screen now that this figure is £900,000. That's £400,000 more than in the previous example where they both had the full state pension. So again, this really does show you the impact of the state pension and how big of a difference it can make in terms of how much you need to save. Because what we said here is that if neither of you have got the full state pension, you have effectively got to find £400,000 more to actually fund that same level of lifestyle in retirement. So when people look at the state pension and think, oh, it's not much, it's a couple £100 a week, this actually shows you how much impact it can have over the long term on your retirement plan. Okay, so now we've looked at the comparisons and how much a state pension is actually worth. You might be thinking, how do I actually know if I've got the state pension and if I've got the full entitlement? So on screen now, I've left a link to the gov.uk website. And what this allows you to do is go on and obtain a state pension forecast. So this will show you exactly what you're on target to get, when you're on target to get it, and if there are any shortfalls in your national insurance contributions. So if you've now logged on and seen you have got gaps in your national insurance contributions, you might be thinking, can I actually make those contributions and actually ensure that I've got the full state pension entitlement when I reach state pension age? On screen now, I've laid out exactly how much that can cost you. So you can see here that for every extra year of national insurance contributions, it's going to cost you about £900. So what this means is that once you've purchased that additional year of national insurance contributions, you're going to be entitled to about £300 to £400 or more each year in retirement. So you can see here on screen that I've basically calculated that based on the amount it costs you, and then based on the extra pension you'll get from state pension age, it would take about 2 to 3 years for you to then get that money back that you've spent. So you can see that it's really important that you actually ensure you've got the full state pension, because for a lot of people, this can be the best investment they make, because this provides you with a guaranteed income in retirement that's inflation linked. Okay, and finally, a common question which a lot of people have around state pension, and that is, will it even exist when I reach state pension age? Now, currently in the UK, about 12 million people are receiving a state pension, and about 1 in 8 of those is their only income. So if they were to suddenly remove the state pension, this would put millions of people into poverty immediately. So, what's more likely to happen? I think potentially at some point they are going to keep increasing the state pension age. So this is going to be going from 67 to 68 very shortly. And over the course of the next kind of 30 to 40 years, I would expect that to increase to around age 70. So what this means is it's going to cost less for the government than it is currently by pushing that state pension age back even further. Another option they've got is to remove the triple lock. So this means that instead of your state pension increasing by 2.5%, the average earnings or what the current inflation rate is, it may just be 1 or 2 of those. So again, this eases the burden on the government in terms of the amount the state pension costs them. And the final option is to means test the state pension. So simply what this means is that if you've got a certain level of income or a certain amount of assets, you may not get the full state pension. So it may mean you get part of the state pension or none of it at all. Now, clearly all 3 of those options are on a table and available to the government. But quite frankly, I would see it very difficult for them to suddenly change the rules overnight. And if they were going to reduce or remove the state pension, it's likely that they're going to give years, if not decades of notice before doing so. Okay, so you've seen from this video how much a state pension can actually be worth in retirement. And it's not simply £12,000 a year or a couple £100 a month. It is £400,000 over the course of your retirement. So what I would suggest you do now is actually check out my financial clarity system. This is a free bit of software that you can find the details to in the description. And simply what this allows you to do is input your own details and see if you are on track for retirement. Now, that's going to include things like what your current age is, what your current income is, what your level of pensions currently are, and how much you're contributing towards them. And this will show you if you are on track for retirement or not. Now, if you're not on track, it will show you things that you can actually do to ensure you are on track, whether that's increasing your contributions, maybe taking a slightly higher level of risk over the course of your working life to ensure you get that additional growth over the long term, or perhaps actually reducing your expenses when it comes to retirement. But anyway, hope you've enjoyed the video. If you got some value from it, please do consider subscribing to the channel because I'll be posting a lot more videos just like this in the future, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video.